Today, we're diving into something that's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about ancient history and modern cover-ups. Y'all remember The Exorcist, right? That 1973 flick that had audiences puking in theater aisles and priests refusing to bless the goddamn thing? Well, what if I told you that Pazuzu, that fucked up looking bastard that possessed little Reagan, wasn't some Hollywood screenwriter's fever dream? This ancient entity has been documented for over 4,000 years with real archaeological evidence scattered across museums worldwide. But here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean downright fucking suspicious as hell. During the 2003 invasion of Iraq, something unprecedented happened at Baghdad's National Museum. In the chaos of war, over 15,000 priceless artifacts just fucking vanished. Gone. Poof. Now, the official story is that it was simply random looting, opportunistic thieves grabbing whatever they could carry. But here's where shit starts getting fucky. We're talking about ancient Mesopotamian demon tablets, ritual objects, and cuneiform inscriptions that specifically mention entities like Pazuzu. And to make it worse, over 7,000 of these artifacts are still missing today. Still missing. And don't think this is ancient history we're talking about here. Shit. Just last year, authorities quietly shut down multiple incidents involving what they're calling Pazuzu Rituals. Modern-day occultists using ancient summoning techniques that apparently got a little too real for comfort. But good luck finding any official reports about these cases. They've been scrubbed cleaner than a stripper's pole before the lunch rush. Now, here's the part that'll slap your ass like a drunk hookup at a Walmart parking lot. Ancient civilizations didn't fear Pazuzu. They used him. No shit. This demon that Hollywood painted as pure evil was actually considered protection by the Mesopotamians. They wore his image as jewelry, carved his likeness into amulets, and invoked his name to ward off worse supernatural threats. So, what did these ancient people know about the spirit world that our modern governments are so desperately trying to keep buried? Today, we're fixing to dig into the uncomfortable truth about Pazuzu, explore why certain artifacts remain conveniently missing, and uncover what might be the biggest archaeological cover-up of our lifetime. Alright folks, let's get one thing straight right out of the gate. When most people hear Pazuzu, they think of that head-spinning, pea soup spewing nightmare from The Exorcist. But here's what Hollywood didn't tell you. This supernatural shit show wasn't some made-up movie monster. Pazuzu is real, documented, and has been fucking with people for over 4,000 years. We're talking about an ancient Mesopotamian demon king, not some weird-ass campfire story your drunk uncle tells at family reunions. This thing ruled the southwestern winds, brought famine and locusts, and had ancient civilizations so freaked out they were carving his ugly mug into bronze amulets back in 3000 BCE. That's older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge. Hell, this demon was already ancient when Jesus was walking around Palestine. Now, things take a fascinating turn. We've got hard archaeological evidence, real cuneiform tablets, bronze statues, ritual amulets found in royal graves near present-day Iraq. These ain't shitty little tourist trinkets either. These are legit artifacts that archaeologists have been digging up since the 1800s. The British Museum, the Louvre, several major institutions worldwide have Pazuzu artifacts sitting in their collections as we speak. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind harder than a first date in the back of a pickup parked behind a Waffle House at 2 a.m. Ancient people didn't just fear this demon, they used him. That's no bullshit. Pazuzu was like the supernatural equivalent of fighting fire with fire. Ancient texts show they'd invoke this wind demon to ward off even worse entities, particularly something called Lamashtu, a child-killing demon that made Pazuzu look like a sleepy golden retriever wearing a sheriff's hat. So why the hell am I telling you all this now? Because recent archaeological discoveries and some very suspicious government artifact seizures suggest there's a hell of a lot more to this ancient entity than anyone wants you to know. And when governments start quietly collecting demon artifacts, well, that's when Uncle Perry starts asking fucking questions. Now, let's dig into the meat and taters of this whole clusterfuck. Because what we're dealing with here isn't your basic angels versus demons bedtime bullshit. The ancient Mesopotamians had what can only be described as a supernatural organizational chart, and it was more complex than your mom's vibrator collection. Picture this. You've got a whole goddamn hierarchy of demons, each with specific job descriptions, territories, and powers. At the top of the wind demon food chain sits Pazuzu, looking like something that crawled out of your worst nightmare. A canine head, human body, eagle talons, wings, and to top off the strangeness, a snake-headed penis. I bet he didn't get too many blowjobs. But he wasn't alone in this supernatural bureaucracy. I mentioned Lamashtu earlier. There were dozens of other entities, each controlling different aspects of disease, famine, war, and natural disasters. The archaeological evidence for this system is overwhelming, and that's what makes the modern cover-ups so damn suspicious. We've got thousands of cuneiform tablets that read like instruction manuals for demon management. I'm not kidding. We're talking about step-by-step procedures for summoning Pazuzu's protective power, complete with required offerings, specific incantations, and detailed timing requirements. These weren't religious ceremonies or symbolic rituals. These were practical guides written by people who clearly believed they were dealing with real, tangible supernatural forces. Take the ritual texts found in the ruins of ancient Babylon. They contain explicit instructions for creating Pazuzu head amulets, including the exact metals to use, the proper blessing ceremonies, and even quality control measures to ensure the protective charm will actually work. One tablet specifically states that a properly consecrated Pazuzu necklace must be worn during childbirth to prevent Lamashtu from stealing the newborn via miscarriage. Another describes how to position Pazuzu statues in doorways to create supernatural barriers against evil spirits. Kinda like hanging a used condom on your doorknob to keep the bad vibes out. What can I say? My college years were pretty fucking wild. But here's where it gets really interesting and really fucked up. Royal graves throughout Mesopotamia were loaded with Pazuzu artifacts. We're talking about kings, queens, and high priests who were buried with elaborate demon protection systems. These weren't superstitious peasants hedging their bets. Hell no! These were the most educated, powerful people in their civilizations, and they were so convinced of Pazuzu's reality that they invested enormous amounts of time and money in what could be called supernatural security systems. The most compelling evidence comes from the palace excavations near modern-day Baghdad. Archaeologists found entire rooms dedicated to demon communication, complete with ritual circles, offering altars, and walls completely covered in protective Pazuzu imagery. The cuneiform inscriptions in these chambers describe regular consultations with supernatural entities, detailed records of successful demon banishments, and what can only be described as ancient paranormal investigation reports. Yeah, that's more than a little fucked up. What really tickles my frontal lobe like a dominatrix with a PhD is the level of sophistication in these ancient supernatural protocols. They had specific procedures for different types of hauntings, standardized methods for testing whether a demon was actually present or just psychological manipulation, and even quality assurance measures to verify that their protective rituals were working properly. This wasn't some primitive, superstitious bullshit. This was a systematic, scientific approach to managing supernatural threats. So here's the fucking million-dollar question. If ancient civilizations possessed genuine knowledge about communicating with and controlling supernatural entities, where the hell did that knowledge go? Why did humanity suddenly forget thousands of years of documented demon management techniques? And why are there several modern governments so interested in keeping Mesopotamian artifacts locked away from public examination? The real mind-bender? Our ancestors might have cracked something deep about reality, and someone's been working overtime to bury it. Alright folks, now we're getting into the shit that'll make your skin crawl and probably get me on a few goddamn government watch lists. Because when we start talking about actual Pazuzu summoning rituals, we're not dealing with some Hollywood special effects horse shit. We're talking about documented procedures that people have been using for millennia and apparently still are today. The ancient texts are disturbingly specific about how these rituals work. I'm talking step-by-step instructions that read like a supernatural cookbook from hell. First, you need what they called the wind chamber, a sealed room with specific ventilation patterns that supposedly allow Pazuzu's essence to manifest. Then you've got your offering requirements: fresh blood, burning cedar, and something called tears of the innocent. The ingredients list for summoning a demon or hosting an orgy in a hot topic. But here's where it gets really fucked up. These weren't one-time desperate measures. Archaeological evidence shows that major Mesopotamian cities had permanent ritual sites dedicated to Pazuzu summoning. We're talking about industrial-scale supernatural operations with professional demon summoners who also held official government positions. The palace records from ancient Babylon, I kid you not, list Chief Wind Demon Consultant as a paid royal position. I wonder what kind of perks you would get with that. The ritual process itself is complex as hell. According to the cuneiform tablets, summoners had to fast for 7 days, anoint themselves with special oils, and perform invocations for 3 nights before the main event. Kinda like prepping for a black magic rave where one wrong move gets you cursed for life. The actual summoning required precise timing, always during windstorms, preferably when the southwestern winds were the strongest. They'd arrange bronze Pazuzu statues in specific geometric patterns, light fires using wood from trees struck by lightning, and recite incantations that took hours to complete. Now, here's the part that'll fuck with your head like a bad Tinder date on tequila. These ancient rituals weren't just about summoning Pazuzu for protection. Some tablets describe what can only be called demon binding ceremonies, procedures for trapping supernatural entities and forcing them to serve human masters. We're talking about spiritual slavery, folks. Ancient sorcerers were enslaving demons and using them as supernatural weapons against their enemies. You had to have a serious amount of sack to even try that shit. Fast forward to today, and now we're not just poking the beast, we're fucking spooning it. Law enforcement agencies across multiple countries have been quietly documenting what they're calling Neo-Mesopotamian ritual activity. I'm talking about modern practitioners who've somehow gotten hold of these ancient summoning techniques and are apparently getting results that have authorities genuinely spooked. In 2019, German police raided a compound outside Berlin where they found a perfect recreation of an ancient Pazuzu summoning chamber. We're talking about a room built to exact archaeological specifications, complete with cuneiform inscriptions carved into the walls and a ventilation system specifically designed according to 4,000-year-old blueprints. The official report was classified, but leaked documents mention unexplained atmospheric disturbances and multiple officer injuries from unknown causes. What the fuck is going on? Similar incidents have been reported in Romania, where authorities shut down what they described as an ancient demon worship cult that was using stolen museum artifacts in their ceremonies. The group had somehow acquired genuine Mesopotamian ritual implements and were conducting summoning ceremonies that produced measurable paranormal phenomena. Again, the full investigation reports remain classified, but of course they do. But here's what really gets my conspiracy spidey senses tingling. Every single one of these modern ritual sites was using artifacts that had been stolen from museums or archaeological sites. Pretty goddamn convenient, right? Like someone wanted these ancient tools to end up in the hands of modern practitioners. It's very possible certain government agencies might be conducting their own experiments with supernatural forces and using civilian cult groups as unwitting test subjects. The most disturbing part is the pattern of missing persons around these ritual sites. Multiple investigations have documented people disappearing in the vicinity of suspected Pazuzu summoning locations. That's fucked up. The official explanation is always the same: voluntary departure or unrelated criminal activity. But when you've got a dozen missing person cases clustered around ancient demon worship sites, that's not coincidence, folks. That's a goddamn trail of breadcrumbs leading straight into the abyss. And here's the shit that'll keep you up at night. According to leaked intelligence reports, some of these modern Pazuzu rituals are working. A little too good. We're talking about documented cases of supernatural manifestations, unexplained phenomena, and what can only be described as genuine demonic activity. Which means one of two things. Either our ancestors knew something about the nature of reality that we've forgotten, or certain people in positions of power are actively experimenting with forces they don't fully understand. My money's on both. Either way, the fact that ancient demon summoning rituals are making a comeback in the 21st century should scare the holy shit out of everyone. Now, this is where things get weird, and maybe a little uncomfortable for some folks. Because Pazuzu isn't just an ancient myth that stayed locked in the past. His name and image keep popping up in ways that make you wonder if there's more going on than dusty museum displays and mythology textbooks. Let's start with the shit they didn't teach in history class: the missing Mesopotamian artifacts. Back in the early 2000s, during the war in Iraq, over 15,000 ancient artifacts were stolen from the Iraq Museum in Baghdad. Looters ripped through the collection, which included some of the oldest human records ever created: cuneiform tablets, temple idols, religious relics, and yes, demon-related pieces. Among them, multiple items connected to Pazuzu and other dark figures from Assyrian and Babylonian belief systems. Now here's the fucked up part. While a lot of those artifacts were scattered by looters looking to make a quick buck on the black market, some pieces were specifically targeted. Reports from museum staff claim that thieves ignored valuable gold and jewels and went straight for the stone tablets, bronze figures, and relics marked with demonic inscriptions. Theories started to pop up that this wasn't random looting. It was intentional. Like someone was trying to erase or possibly collect very specific knowledge. But to what end? And when you look at how some of those items have never resurfaced, not even in black market raids or private collections, it gets pretty sus. Then we get to what I call the government artifact control problem. You see, over the years, the US and other international groups have been involved in recovering those stolen artifacts. In total, about 14,800 artifacts have been returned to Iraqi protection. Sounds great, right? But here's the thing. Not all of them have been put back into public view. Some researchers, including a few brave folks in the museum world, have gone on record saying certain objects, especially those connected to superstitious themes like demonology, were sent to secured government storage instead of back to display cases. Why? The general bullshit public explanation is security or fragility. But others say these are just convenient excuses. Some whistleblowers suggest these items are being studied behind closed doors, not for historical value, but for ritualistic or symbolic power. Yeah, that's where the conspiracy gears start grinding. Let's shift gears again and talk about the Ununiform Translations, because this fuckery is just as strange. A number of scholars working with newly unearthed tablets in the 2010s claim to have translated previously unknown descriptions of demonic encounters. These weren't your basic don't go in the woods ghost stories. They were full-on exorcism accounts, strange weather events, unexplained illnesses, and rituals involving offerings to Pazuzu by name. And then, silence. Several of these findings were supposed to be published, Academic journals had drafts already in progress. There were even lectures scheduled. But all of it fucking vanished. Researchers involved either went dark, changed focus, or mysteriously withdrew from the projects. Some say institutional pressure is to blame. Universities and archaeological foundations may have been uncomfortable with the paranormal angle, worried it would make their research look like pseudoscience. Others believe more powerful forces were involved, shutting down information that might lead people to ask the wrong questions. Now let's get into the shit that'll make the hair on your ass stand up. Paranormal activity around Pazuzu artifacts. Oh, fuck yeah. There are quiet rumors, and I mean nearly silent, about things happening at dig sites and museums housing demon-linked relics. Lights flickering, alarms going off without cause, security footage glitching or vanishing altogether. One museum curator anonymously reported seeing a Pazuzu statue vibrate slightly in its case during a thunderstorm. Another said the climate control system for a particular Mesopotamian wing refused to hold temperature and constantly reset itself. In one particularly creepy-ass case, a team of researchers digging at a site near Mosul in northern Iraq, close to where Pazuzu imagery has been found in the past, reported a freak sandstorm that came out of nowhere and lasted almost 6 hours. Every piece of electronic equipment they had got fucked up. They were forced to abandon the site for 2 full days. When they returned, mysteriously, some of the excavation markers had been moved, despite no one being there. These are the kinds of stories that never make it into final excavation reports, but they were passed from person to person in the academic world with a little too much detail to be totally made up. Of course, skeptics say, "It's just confirmation bias." You hear a spooky name like Pazuzu, and you start seeing shadows where there aren't any. But the pattern is hard to ignore, especially when so many incidents are tied to very specific items, like amulets with winged demon figures, bronze figurines of Pazuzu, or inscribed protective charms. In fact, some museums have quietly removed or relocated Pazuzu-related items from public areas, not because they're dangerous, officially, but due to staff discomfort. That's the phrase that gets used a lot in internal memos. Not broken, not culturally sensitive, just uncomfortable. What the fuck? Add that to the stories of academic suppression, missing artifacts, and whispered government interest, and you've got a very incredible picture forming. A picture that suggests we're not just looking at ancient myth, but something more current, more hidden, and more dangerous than most people are willing to admit. Look, I'm not saying there's a demon locked in a basement somewhere under museum security, although I wouldn't be surprised. But I am saying that history doesn't get erased unless someone's afraid of what it reveals. And when so many paths point back to one name, Pazuzu, you have to wonder, is this just an ancient legend? Or is it the kind of story that gets silenced, one missing archaeologist at a time? So there you have it, folks, the complete story of Pazuzu, from ancient Mesopotamian demon lord to modern government cover-up. We've traveled through 4,000 years of history, uncovered archaeological evidence that mainstream academia refuses to acknowledge, and successfully connected the dots that the higher-ups desperately want to keep separated. The truth is, Pazuzu isn't just some dusty relic from humanity's superstitious past. This entity represents something far more fucking dangerous. Proof that our ancestors understood forces and realities that we've been systematically conditioned to forget. Whether you call it supernatural warfare, interdimensional manipulation, or just good old-fashioned demon summoning, the goddamn evidence is undeniable. Ancient civilizations possessed knowledge about the nature of reality that modern science can't explain and governments absolutely won't admit exists. But here's what really keeps me up at night, and what should terrify every single one of you watching this. The same people who've spent decades covering up UFO encounters, suppressing archaeological discoveries, and conducting illegal experiments on their own citizens are now actively collecting and studying these ancient demon summoning artifacts. They're not preserving them for historical value, they're weaponizing them. The missing persons cases around ritual sites, the classified government programs studying supernatural warfare, the systematic removal of Pazuzu artifacts from public museums. It all points to one fucked up conclusion. Someone in a position of real power knows these ancient rituals actually work, and they're preparing to use them. So the next time you hear about unexplained atmospheric disturbances, mass animal die-offs, or people disappearing near archaeological sites, remember what you learned here today. Remember that humanity once lived in a world where demons were real, summoning rituals worked, and the boundary between our reality and something much darker was paper fucking thin. And ask yourself this question: if our ancestors were right about Pazuzu, what else were they right about that we've been told to forget? Stay vigilant, stay curious, and never stop questioning the official story, because in a world where ancient demons are making a comeback, the truth isn't just stranger than fiction, it's more dangerous than anyone wants to admit. If this video scared the hell out of you, gently tap that like button and subscribe. That way, you won't miss out on more of my fucked up commentary. And besides, I really do appreciate it. Man, that's some tripped out fucking shit there. What do y'all think? Let me know down in the comments. And if you're ready to go all in, that join button's got your name on it. For just $2.99, you can have my back in a big way. Until next time, y'all keep it real, keep it chill, and stay creepy! Catch you on the flip. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. You are the real beast.